down his Punggye-ri nuclear also saying that he was going to invite experts and journalists from South Korea, from the US, to show complete transparency. And he also said quite an interesting thing, that he's not the kind of person that would fire a nuclear weapon against South Korea or against the United States. Obviously, a very different Kim Jong-un we were seeing on Friday than we have seen in recent months and years, as we have heard threats from North Korea against Washington, against Seoul, against a number of other capitals, but saying that he is not the kind of person that would do that. Now, he also said about this nuclear test site in the northeast of the country that he is going to shut down. He refuted claims that it had collapsed anyway, that Chinese geologists have said, and so needed to be shut down. He said there were actually 2 more tunnels there that nobody knew about, and they were in very good condition, but he was still going to shut it down. One more thing as well, he also said that he was going to change time. Just a few years ago, Kim Jong-un decided to change the clocks back half an hour in Pyongyang, so they were different from Seoul. He's now going to move them into the Seoul time again. So Kim Jong-un moving time twice in just a few years. Victor and Christy.
Moving time twice in just a few years.
Who has the power for that? Wow.
All right, Paula Hancock, Sarah Westwood. And Sarah Westwood, now officially a CNN reporter. Welcome to CNN, Sarah.
Welcome to the family, Sarah.
Thanks.
All right, thank you both. Well, the president used his rally to attack Democrats who are calling for his impeachment and address the latest developments in the Russia investigation. Watch this.
We have to keep the House. Because if you listen to Maxine Waters, she goes around saying, we will impeach him. We will impeach him. Then people said, but he hasn't done anything wrong. Oh, that doesn't matter. We will impeach the president. So I don't think we're going to have a lot of happy people if that happens. I think it's going to be a little bit tough. But she goes around, and some others, we will impeach him. Doesn't matter if you do anything right or wrong. They want to do that. We got to win the House. And you know what? We're going to win anyway. But we're going to win the House. Have you heard about the lawyer? For a year, a woman lawyer, she was like, oh, I know nothing, no. Now all of a sudden, she supposedly is involved with government. You know why? If she did that, because Putin and the group said, you know, this Trump is killing us. Why don't you say that you're involved with government so that we can go and make their life in the United States even more chaotic? Look at what's happened. Look at how these politicians have fallen for this junk. Russian collusion. Give me a break.
All right, let's talk about it. Joining me now, CNN political commentator Errol Lewis and deputy managing editor at the Weekly Standard, Kelly Jane Torrance. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so Kelly, first to you. The president has used this line of argument before that keep Republicans in control of Congress or they're going to impeach me. Republicans have been, some groups have been fundraising off of this. How effective is it?
Yeah, I think it actually can be fairly effective with the Republican base. I mean, let's face it, one of the reasons Donald Trump was elected is because you had a great number of people in the United States who felt that their voices weren't being heard by traditional politicians. And when you have politicians saying, hey, we don't like this guy who was elected, we want to impeach them, that really just makes them feel that the lesson was not learned. The people in Washington are still not hearing their voices. So I think it's a strategy that could backfire in some ways for Democrats, although I still think they are very strong going into the midterms.
So, Errol, you have to consider that this is a pretty impressive contortion here, because the president over the last, 16 months now, has by name criticized Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and Murkowski and McCain and on down the list, and ran against the Washington establishment. And now he's saying, keep the status quo to protect me.
Well, that's right. Look, you perceive, I think, properly the gap between the politics that work for Donald Trump and the politics that work for the other members of his party, who are very worried going into the fall midterm elections. So, for Donald Trump, when he pulls out impeachment, yeah, it rallies the base. It brings a lot of waverers in line, and they say, well, look, we didn't want to throw the guy out. We may have some misgivings. We may not like how things are going, but we don't necessarily want to see him impeached. And so the polling all suggests that it sort of works not only to his favor, but also to that of some of the Republicans who are going to be running with him. That's why, by the way, Victor, you see a lot of the Democratic leadership that has access to the best polling data, Pelosi and the rest of the leadership, they keep saying not so fast on impeachment. This doesn't work for us. It really sort of spurs turnout. If there's going to be a blue wave, it's going to be because there's an enthusiasm gap that the Democrats can win. When Trump starts warning about impeachment, when Republicans warn about impeachment, that sort of gets the excitement going in the Republican base.
Kelly, let's talk about Natalia Veselnitskaya, the lawyer that he brought up at the rally last night that now claims she's an informant for the Russian government. The president's explanation really corresponds with what the intelligence community and Russia analysts say was initially the reason that Russia first started meddling in the election was to sow chaos, and then they chose their candidate. But there are some people who believe on this one the president might be right, that now is the time to start to bring up some other chaotic elements.
Yeah, I have to admit, I was a little surprised to hear Donald Trump complaining about chaos in Washington. He normally seems to like to cause it and revel in it. But yeah, no, it's maybe Donald Trump is finally thinking that the deep state might be right about a few things. And let's face it, I mean, when you look at what came out of that meeting, the Russians actually were not very successful. And nobody really got what they wanted. The Trump people did not get the dirt on Hillary that they were going into that meeting thinking they were going to get. And the Russians, in fact, did not get any sanctions lifted after Trump was elected. And in fact, we've only seen more sanctions on Russia. Now, admittedly, some of those may have come reluctantly from Donald Trump, but he's got a great team behind him that do understand what's going on in Russia and that Russia is trying to sow this chaos. And it sounds like maybe they're finally getting through to the president, and he himself is starting to see, hey, sometimes the Russians seem to like to do things to help me, and then other times they don't. And he finally realizes they do not support necessarily a single candidate. They just want to cause chaos and really make Western democracy look bad.
Now, Errol, if the president believes that she's now telling the truth, that she is and was an informant for the Russian government, does that not make the June 2016 meeting more egregious? I mean, is he serving himself and his team by acknowledging it?
Well, no. I mean, first of all, by acknowledging it, he's simply coming along with reality as reflected in a ton of information, shall we say, as well as some indictments and some ongoing investigation. So it's no great sort of concession for him to simply acknowledge what everybody has already sort of known. He does put himself and his team, though, his former campaign team, including his son, in a little bit of a tricky position because, yeah, if you go back and look at that meeting and what was said about it, I mean, it was supposed to be a nothing burger. It was supposed to be a meeting about adoptions. We know that the president himself, the president-elect at the time, the candidate at the time, was involved in trying to spin what that meeting was about. All of that now changes if the new line is going to be it was a direct intervention by the Russian government. And it cries out for further explanation from the president. Now that you know this, what are you prepared to do about it? What were all those former statements about that meeting? What does Donald Jr. have to say about it? What does Paul Manafort have to say about it? How does it tie in with the legal problems that Paul Manafort has? Lots more questions than answers. Maybe one of those things that during that 80-minute rally he maybe shouldn't have gotten into.
And Kelly, you'd expect that Bob Mueller already knew that she was an informant. Does this, from your perspective, from your understanding, change anything legally, substantively, that she's now telling reporters that she was an informant?
No, despite this being one of the leakiest Washingtons of all time, even Bob Mueller is definitely a step ahead of the game. And he knew all this, and his office has been relatively good about not leaking. It's really the people that are meeting with him that have been doing it. So no, he knows all about this, and it's certainly been a part of his investigation. So if there are questions that I agree need to be answered, you can know that his team is already looking to try to answer those.
All right, Kelly Jane Torrance, Errol Lewis, Thank you for being with us this morning, but stay with us. There is a lot more to discuss later this hour. And also later this morning on State of the Union, Governor John Kasich, Senator James Lankford, as well as Stormy Daniels' attorney, Michael Avenatti, all ahead on CNN. They're with Jake Tapper at 9 a.m. Eastern.
Well, there are some mixed reviews this morning regarding the White House Correspondents' Dinner. A lot of people saying, did Michelle Wolf speak truth to power? Did she deliver too many cheap shots? Listen to this.
Yeah. I was invited to another event tonight, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. But I'd much rather be in Washington, Michigan than in Washington, D.C. right now.
Of course, Trump isn't here, if you haven't noticed. He's not here. And I know I would drag him here myself, but it turns out the President of the United States is the one you're not allowed to grab.
All right, President Trump went head-to-head with the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He held a campaign rally in Washington Township, Michigan, as he was slammed in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, a lot of people wondering, was the dinner an effective counterpunch to a combative president? Was it a political gift to him? Brian Stelter, CNN senior media correspondent and host of Reliable Sources, with us now. What is your take? What is word on the street about, at the end of the day, the effectiveness or the success of the dinner?
We can judge it based on the comedy, or then we can judge it based on all of the controversies that ensued. And certainly there's been a split reaction to Michelle Wolf's performance. Maybe that's exactly what she wanted. She wanted to stoke controversy and make some political points. Many people this morning saying it was highly inappropriate, others saying it was very funny. Either way, her performance was definitely shocking. Here's a look at some of the highlights.
You guys gotta stop putting Kellyanne on your shows. All she does is lie. If you don't give her a platform, she has nowhere to lie. It's like that old saying, if a tree falls in the woods, how do we get Kellyanne under that tree? I'm not suggesting she gets hurt, just stuck. Stuck under a tree. There's also, of course, Ivanka. She was supposed to be an advocate for women, but it turns out she's about as helpful to women as an empty box of tampons. She's done nothing to satisfy women. So I guess, like father, like daughter. Oh, you don't think he's good in bed. Come on. She does clean up nice, though. Ivanka cleans up nice. She's the diaper genie of the administration. On the outside, she looks sleek, but the inside, it's still full of And of course, we have Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We are graced with Sarah's presence tonight. I have to say, I'm a little starstruck. I love you as Aunt Lydia on The Handmaid's Tale. Mike Pence, if you haven't seen it, you would love it. Every time Sarah steps up to the podium, I get excited because I'm not really sure what we're going to get. You know, a press briefing, a bunch of lies, or divided into softball teams. I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies. It's probably lies. It's 2018, and I'm a woman, so you cannot shut me up. Unless you have Michael Cohen wire me $130,000. Michael, you can find me on Venmo under my porn star name, Reince Priebus.
All right, there you go. Let the debate continue. That was a good recap of some of Michelle Wolf's jokes, especially when she was really criticizing Trump administration officials who were in the room. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of controversy over her performance. She was, of course, doing a very edgy stand-up act. That's what comedians sometimes do at the dinner. But by calling out the Trump administration officials who snubbed the dinner last year but did decide to attend this year, it made for some awkward moments at the dinner. There are some people this morning saying that the jokes about Sarah Sanders went too far, that it was about her physical appearance, her looks. Michelle Wolf actually responded to that on Twitter overnight. She said, actually, I was trying to try, that she says she was talking about Sarah Sanders' capacity for lying and being misleading, quote, her despicable behavior. Meanwhile, Sean Spicer responded overnight saying the dinner was a disgrace. Michelle Wolf had a two-word response. She said, thank you to Sean Spicer.
So does it appear as if Kellyanne Conway and some of the other former administration...
It's one of the two. And so that's probably what was more predictable. It was just part of the Russian collusion story, part of the quote-unquote fake news. My guess is this is solid enough, at least within his inner circle, that he does need to deal with it. So this is the way he's doing that.
Okay. So let's talk about North Korea, because there is some news this morning. President Trump, as we just said, talking about the fact that he believes this meeting with Kim Jong-un will happen in the next 3 to 4 weeks. North Korea saying that a nuclear test site will be destroyed, and they will invite international journalists and international people in the community to come and